Time for Dodgies vlog, you grot.
Alright guys, and welcome back to the vlog. Still working on the terrain. If you remember this project from the last vlog, we are going to be doing something a little different, similar to last time. These are 5mm thick lines. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the door frame to this. As door frames, they can be a little bit tricky. This is not a full-on tutorial, as always, it's just a vlog. I spent a lot of time just mucking about with this terrain, trying to make it look half decent, ready for the battle reports, which I know a lot of you are waiting for. And at the end of this video, you guys get to see the result of what we've got. The paint job's not finished. So this is 3 rows of 5mm thickness. Yes, I believe it's 5mm thickness. Yes, 5mm thickness, and we're going to fold that. We'll score it in both lines there, and then fold it over itself, so we get a sort of a U shape all the way down. And immediately after just recording the last vlog, I do know I've done this the wrong way around, which is why I've got a horrible texture on the outside, which is going to be a bit more awkward to paint. But once that's scored, we're going to measure that up against the door frame, because you don't want to leave your door frame flat. Adding all this trim to your terrain, or your personal projects for terrain anyway, it really adds a little bit of something and breaks up those flat box shapes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten that back out now and measure up where it needs to go. But we are going to have to cut some little shapes out, so the sides and the top interlock a little bit. Okay, so this will be the top piece. But obviously it won't fit in there because it has to overlap a little bit where it will connect to the side parts. And unfortunately I didn't show you what I meant there by that, but I'm going to take a few millimeters off there, probably another 5mm, as you want each end of the door frame to stand out just enough. So there you go, it'll now sit in there, and I'll show you. That should have an overhang of about 5mm over each side. So then we just do the same thing again for the other side, except it's not as detailed. You just cut a piece, fold it round, and we've got something resembling a very quick and easy door frame. This is a mixture of sand, plaster and PVA glue. It sets rock solid. Me and Andy use this a lot on our terrain. It also helps the terrain weigh a bit more. So there's none of that. I'm going to move this model and I've knocked the foam core board, and now everything's moved ever so slightly. What I've done with that mixture is I've put it over all the gaps, and I've used my finger to push it in, because what it'll do with the materials it's made of is when it dries, the PVA and the plaster will shrink, letting all the sand texture and everything else you've got show through. So it's a good way of building up a nice solid layer, and I like to push the cat litter in as well, which is also absorbent, which will come in handy later on. What I've done is I've put that all the way around the outer edges where the rubble will build up, and I'm just going to push in nice big chunks of cat litter. Just make sure you don't put any bits in that are too big or bigger than 5mm in thickness. I'm then actually going to add my sand on first. It's just the way I like to do this. I think I get a much more natural look. Doesn't always work. It does take a bit of patience, the next step we're going to do. But throwing it on there like that does give a much more natural look. Now we're going to have to make that bond though. You can also push that into the mixture of plaster, sand and PVA glue. I'm doing this while everything else is wet as well. What I've done here is I've mixed up 50-50 with water and PVA glue, and I'm just using a pipette to drop this, and as you'll notice, all the sand's going to start soaking that up. And so is the cat litter. So what's going to happen is like a paper mache effect, where you layer layers of PVA glue and water together, except this is all going to bond together, and then because it's absorbent, it's going to absorb all that and pull itself together nice and tight and bond with a very thick layer of, well, it's a watered down glue, but the glue will pull everything else together, making it nice and solid. At that point I wasn't happy that it bubbled up some of the sand, so I was pushing that down. Now I've got that out of the way, we can actually crack on with this bit of the vlog, because what we're building this time is the other bit with the walkway, just to break things up a little bit. This is a pre-cut bit of foam core from another project, so I can't tell you exactly what angle that is, but we're going to make some weird angled terrain with some pipelines running through it, because Andy was suggesting we're getting a lot of high-rise sort of terrain that's raised up. It'd be nice to be able to make terrain that's just for the look, that's a bit more flat, basically more aesthetic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that off. As you can see, it overlaps, so I'm not going to need that part. Always be careful with these knives though, guys, and be careful cutting your foam core. Don't try and go through it in one move. Cut the card, then cut the foam core and the next piece of card on the second cut. So that's going to make an interesting shape. It's going to break that up. Now all I'm going to do, all I ended up doing was using the 1 centimetre thickness bit of card. Well, it's 2 centimetres and it's scored. I'm going to use that to measure around the edges nice and quick. Using that as a template. So I'm going to go all the way around all the edges. I do find measuring stuff with this sort of angle is really awkward, although it's not actually as awkward as you think. All I've done for this, it's very simple. I've measured from that inside line 2 centimetres. I just followed it. I have actually rubbed the remaining lines over, so that's 2 centimetres, and that's going to give us enough room to put some extra trim on. Then from that line I've measured 5 centimetres from all those lines, and then just joined all those lines up, and all the ones in the middle have basically just been rubbed out. So what we've ended up with is this really interesting shape that I'm going to try and run some pipes along. It was actually a lot easier to make that shape than I thought it would be. So you can still see the remainder of some of those lines. Quite easy to do. I'm not sure where I got these round things from. I'm pretty sure they're off like some poster or poster tube or something. But they happen to be about 5mm thickness, which is the same as the foam core. So I'm going to draw around those. And eventually I'm just going to pop those in there. What I will do, like they're not done yet, is I will put some the lava effects that we do for our bases in there as well, and just make them look a little bit more interesting. Obviously I now need to score out that interesting weird shape that we've got in the middle. Be careful that you don't go too far over this. It's best to cut from the outside edge inwards. On all the angles, because the angle of the blade will cut into your foam core, so that's why I stop there and then go back on itself. And once I've got that out, as you can see, I've cut those circles out there. You can see it on the desk, and I've just pushed those in and they fit pretty much perfect. What I've done here is I've cut a whole bunch of plastic card piping in half using a Dremel. I held that against the desk quite tight and then just fed it through like a circular saw or a desk saw or something, which worked pretty well, to be honest. These are all different sizes, but I want the pattern to follow correctly, so I've got a fat one closest to me, a slightly different one, a smaller one, then a thicker one again, then an even thicker one. You're going to want to remember this pattern. We also want some weird angles, so it looks like it's got a metallic frame to it and it's running under the floorboards. So that's what I'm pondering on what to do here. So I decided firstly it would be best to put some trim around all of this just to get that finished. And the trim size, as always, for the inside trim, it's going to be 5mm because that's the thickness of the foam core. So it's basically 1.5 centimeters, I believe, but what I've done is I've done the 5mm and then scored it in half and then just folded it over the same way we've done all the other pieces. It's actually easier to glue these down by gluing the top, the upside facing down first, then using the score to flip it upside down, put the pressure on the foam core and squeeze it tight, and you get a nice bend using the foam core to score it. Obviously I have followed the same pattern as the walkway and done that's 5mm across the top both ways. And as you can see, that one flat bit of terrain is already starting to look really interesting. And what I decided to do here was get some plastic card that's about 5mm thick. And I'm going to wedge that into those two gaps there. This is to just emphasize the shape and make it look a little bit more industrial. So I'm going to mark that off with a pencil. But you have to sort of do this at an angle. So I'll saw most of this off, and then I will carve the rest out with a Stanley knife, as it's quite a snug fit and it's a very difficult angle to get in there, so you're better off just whittling your way through the plastic card until you can get it to fit. I'm using the razor saw for the main cut, and then I will switch to the Stanley knife to just cut out an angle so it fits right on that corner that we've got there. A bit of patience is required for this one, but eventually you'll be able to pop that in and it should just stand in there. You've got to bear in mind as well that the foam core is quite malleable, so you can squash things in and then glue them in. So once that's in, I've just got one more of those to put in, and now we've got an interesting shape. All we need to do now is work on our piping. We wanted these to be flat enough for models to walk across, which is why we've cut them so they're slightly indented, and none of them are any higher than the 5mm foam core. As we've got an angle though, we're going to have to work them in one at a time and saw those down, and that was probably the most time consuming thing. So I want to take that angle off. Always cut so you've got more than you need. Never cut it so you've got less, because that way it won't fit quite right, and if it doesn't fit quite right you can't add more on. So always cut less off, then sand it down or work it around, and then that should fit really snug in there. Now we're not going to glue these in as we do them. We're going to cut all of them to shape first, and the reason for that is just to cover up mistakes. And at this point I've bonded the foam core down because it was moving around quite a lot and making it very difficult to line these up. And we're not going to super glue these down because there's no room for mistakes with this. If you bond it down and it sticks, you're going to have a real hard time getting it off there. So we're going to coat the bottom of that PVA glue. And basically all we're going to do then is fill in each section with the correct bits of pipe and then work our way around. As we've got them all pre-cut with the right angles, and always double check your working while doing this, making sure you've got the right pattern down. Best to dry fit them as well. And for the rest of the tabletop for this, this just made an interesting feature. It goes quite well alongside all the other plates that we've made, although I do want to make some more plates. So after that, let's throw some paint on everything. It's not the greatest paint job, it's quite a rushed paint job, but it's going to be good enough for battle reports. There's the bits Andy was working on, and the barrel, the fuel dump from the other tutorial. And as you can see, these three plates snap together really well. I've gone for a rusted sort of weathered effect on everything, just to contrast with the greys and blues on the table. I would like to spend more time painting them, but we've got a lot of videos to be getting out for you guys. And as you can see, these snap together in a lot of different ways. A lot of maneuverability around here. I would like to make at least one more plate for this particular set of 4, so we can have a 2x2 square of industrial themed terrain. And there's no limit to what you can do with just these basic shapes and designs. So I guess we've got some thank yous to give out here. We've got thank yous to the Orc Boys, Matt, Ludwig Hofbauer, Warren, DY, Kit Lindquist, Agnes of Dawn, and Mark. You guys are our top paying patrons, and you are awesome. We thank you a lot for our support. And that's almost it from me. As you can tell here, all those bits of terrain vlog and videos I've done make this one very massive piece of industrial terrain. Now, that's all from us. Thanks for watching, guys.